Okay, today I'm predicting the Pittsburgh Steelers record prediction. So looking at the Steelers roster, the roster doesn't actually look that bad. On offense, obviously the big question mark is Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. How well will they do? I think they'll do more of the same. Like the Steelers' skill position players aren't super talented. Najee and Warren is good, but their wide receivers are kind of lacking. The Steelers' offensive line is kind of a mystery right now with two rookies and then a couple of young players. So I think the Pittsburgh's offense will be more of the same. But the Pittsburgh's defense should continue to be very good, similar to last year, or better than last year. Their defensive line looks great with Hayward and TJ Watt. Their linebackers improved. They got Patrick Queen now, and Alex Highsmith is still decent. Their secondary, other than that second safety spot with Deshaun Elliott, I think the rest of their safeties, the rest of their defensive backs looks good, especially with Minka there, and they traded for Dante Jackson. So I expect Pittsburgh Steelers to pretty much, like I said, do more of the same, like they have done for like the last 5 years. So starting off, you have your Week 1 game versus the Falcons. I think this one could be a sneaky good game. Kirk Cousins, he may struggle versus that Pittsburgh defense. Steelers defense is good, but I believe that Falcons offense is good enough to shut down that Steelers offense, especially with Russ and Fields being their first game and Arthur's Smith's revenge game. I still think the Falcons have a better overall team with the better quarterback and Kirk Cousins, so I'm taking the Falcons here. Then you have week 2 versus the Broncos, a supposed Russell Wilson revenge game. I'm not sure who the Broncos are going to start at quarterback, but regardless, that Broncos team really is not that talented. Their defense lost their leader in Justin Simmons, and I think Russell Wilson will be able to abuse the safety spots. And the Steelers, their defense should cause problems to whoever starts on the Broncos. So I'm taking the Steelers here. Then you have week 3 versus the Chargers. Similarly, I'm not a huge fan of the Chargers either. I think that Steelers offense can get it done versus the Chargers defense, and Chargers defense, that Chargers offense, I don't think can do much if its run game is not like effective, and I think the Steelers defense can shut down that Chargers run game. So I'm gonna take the Steelers here. Then you have them versus the Colts. Colts. Colts to me can be a sneaky good team. I'm not as long as the Colts defense does something. Colts, I trust in Anthony Richardson. I think he's good and can cause problems with that Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and I don't think the Steelers defense can stop JT. Similarly, though, I don't think the Colts defense can stop the Steelers offense either, since the Colts defense isn't that good either. However, I trust Anthony Richardson over Fields and Russell Wilson. I know hard to say, but I think Richardson has that ceiling, so I'm going to take the Colts here, especially with home field advantage. Then you have them versus the Cowboys. This game I think is one that usually the Steelers would win. The Cowboys, they still have a very talented roster. They can pass the ball all day, but I really do not trust the Steelers offensive line or Russ and Fields against Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. That Cowboys defensive line is scary, and I think both Fields and Russ likes to hold onto the ball. So I'm going to have to take the Cowboys here. That that pass rush for the Cowboys is just way too scary. Then you have them versus the Raiders. Raiders. To me, I think their defense can shut down that Steelers offense. I think the Raiders have a really good defense, and I think the Raiders have a I think the Raiders offense can shut down the Steelers offense more than the Steelers defense can shut down that Raiders offense. Minshew always has his occasional good games, and I think with home field advantage, it's gonna come against the Steelers. So I'm gonna take the Raiders here. Okay, then you have Week 7 versus the Jets. I think this one can be a very interesting game. I think it's going to be a defensive game. Jets and the Steelers both have great defenses, and both teams have question marks at quarterback. However, I do believe that Steelers run game can provide them the win. I believe Aaron Rodgers will struggle mightily versus that Steelers defense, and I think Steelers with home field advantage will get the win and get the upset versus the Jets. This just seems like a game that the Steelers win and the Jets give away. I'm taking the Steelers here. Then you have them versus the Giants. Giants just aren't a good team. Steelers defense will shut down Daniel Jones. They'll shut down whatever remains of that Giants offense. And that Giants defense, even though it's not bad, um, um, the Steelers offense should do just enough. It's going to be a close game, and Steelers always win the close game, so I'm taking the Steelers here. You have Week 10 versus the Commanders. They do have potential, especially on offense with those skill position players. But that Commanders defense, I don't think is that good. That Steelers offense should be better than that Commanders defense, and I think that Steelers defense will do just enough against an inexperienced quarterback like Jaden Daniels. So I'm taking the Steelers here. Then you have Week 11 versus the Ravens. These two teams, Steelers usually play the Ravens tough, and Steelers last year I think they swept the Ravens. But I think the Ravens are gonna avenge that, especially with the mini bye. I'm gonna take the Ravens here. Now Week 12 versus the Browns. Similarly, the Steelers do play well versus the Browns, but it's a Thursday nighter, and Browns have a big home field advantage. Browns, I think their defense will be too much for Russ and for that all those Steelers skill position players. So I think I'm gonna have to take the Browns here. Yeah, Week 13 versus the Bengals. Bengals are coming off a bye. I Bengals, I think they're just the better team, and they have the much better quarterback. I think Burrow is gonna light up that Steelers defense, and that Bengals defense, even though it's not like great, I think it's still above average. So I'm gonna take the Bengals here. And Week 14 versus the Browns, I don't see the Browns sweeping the Steelers. Steelers just always steal a game around, always play with the Browns at worst. I'm taking the Steelers here. Then you have Week 15 versus the Eagles. I think this one could definitely be an upset game for the Eagles. Steelers, I definitely see a potential upsetting the Eagles. Steelers defense, I think, is good enough to slow down Saquon, Hurts, all those skill position players. But I can't trust Wilson or Fields versus the Eagles defense, which wasn't great last year, but still has a lot of talent, and especially with Eagles home field advantage, I gotta take the Eagles here. Then Week 16 versus the Ravens. Like I said earlier, the Steelers usually do well versus the Ravens, so I expect a split, so I'm taking the Steelers here. Then Week 17 versus the Chiefs. It's a Wednesday night, and Steelers have a big home field advantage. Chiefs, I think their offense will struggle versus that Steelers defense. I think the Steelers with Mike Tomlin knows how to shut down Kelsey and the Chiefs run game, and I just Chiefs defense, I just don't think will get the job done versus that Steelers offense. So I think with an upset with big home field advantage on a short week, I gotta take the Steelers here. Then Week 18 versus the Bengals, I don't see the Bengals sweeping the Steelers, and I think the Steelers are gonna preserve that winning record, so I have the Steelers winning. So ending up the Steelers going 9-8, 3-3 in the division, 6-2 at home, and 3-6 away.